Hola, Animigos, and welcome to Keyframers, the animated collaborative coding livestream where we bring imaginative user interfaces to life. I'm your host, Stephen Shaw, but you may know me as @Shashaw.
And I'm your host, David Khourshid, also known as @DavidKPiano.
Together, we are coding compadres, animation amigos, boonlean buddies, and keyframe companions.
Yeah, we're going to be creating an animation from scratch live using HTML, CSS, and no JavaScript. We're happy to answer any questions you may have, especially if you're coming here to see us epically fail at Carl Schooff's challenge, which challenge accepted. We'll see what we could do. But yeah, please reach out in the chat or comments.
Yes, and this show is supported by this month's sponsors, CodePen at CodePen.io, CSS Tricks at CSS-Tricks.com, and viewers like you. You can pledge at Patreon.com/Keyframers or buy some of our developer shirts, stickers, and more at Keyframe.rs/merch. Links are available below.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we have a challenge, don't we?
We do. A little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, so let's go over what happened last week. For those of you new to here, we had it is a self-imposed challenge. We saw Carl Schooff, who does these amazing animation tutorials with GreenSock. He put out a series of challenges, just very simple. I hesitate to say very simple because I know he's just going to make them harder and harder. Animation challenges, basically describing here's something that a client needs done, and you have to go and implement it using whatever tool you'd want. And so it's posted in the chat, Snorkel TV/challenge 3. So we did 1 and 2 last week, and we actually finished those pretty fast. Not to jinx ourselves, but wasn't too bad.
It went surprisingly well. That was, I think, unusual
yeah.
for us to have it go that smoothly.
Today might be different.
Yeah, so the difficulty level is definitely stepped up a little bit, intentionally from Carl.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's several new changes here. If we go down to the reference animation, we can watch that real quick. Walk us through what's happening there, David.
All right, so reference animation, if I could actually find it. There's a bunch of things happening here, and it's a little bit more than challenge 2, but basically we're making modifications to challenge 2. When the squares come together, they bounce. And according to the instructions, all it says is have the red and blue elements bounce off each other when they meet. So there isn't any specification for, what planet are we on? How bouncy are the objects? What's the mass of the objects? Anything like that? Because GreenSock is not a physics engine. It is an animation engine. So, basically the instructions are just make them bounce off each other. So we'll figure out how to do that. And then there's also the spinning that happens when the squares move away from each other. So we have a translate on the y-axis, but we also have a rotation. So we're going to talk about how to do nested transforms with that. And then there's a little bit of an overshoot where the answer is pretty much given for us in the challenge, where we could use a custom easing in order to do that. Yep. But custom easing isn't my favorite for overshoots, but we'll use this just to start off with.
Yeah. So we're going to do all this with CSS. Obviously, some of this is tailored to JavaScript and GSAP's strengths in particular.
Especially the bounce thing. Obviously, it's like a one-liner in GreenSock. That's unfair. But you know what? Challenge accepted. We will do it.
Yes. So we're starting off from last week's challenge. We've got our setup in here. The only JavaScript in here is a console.clear and then a replay animation shortcut, just so that we can click to restart the animation easily. So that's all that's in the JavaScript there. We'll hide that now.
I totally know JavaScript, but
it's no JavaScript for powering the animation.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. and the CSS is untouched from what we did last time. So go back and watch part 1/2 of the challenge, and you can see how we accomplished all this. We'll go through a little bit of it as we get into it. So one of GSAP's advantages, GreenSock, if you're unfamiliar, greensock.com. One of its advantages is the ability to kind of independently animate transforms. CSS traditionally is not good at that because of the way that transforms are set up. And so GSAP does a lot of work under the hood with transform matrices. Matrons. So it's doing a lot of calculations and a lot of weird conversions of all that, of all those transform, translate commands to make everything work smoothly under the hood. And for the most part, that works as expected, but you may get into situations where you want to rotate before you translate, and certain things can be off there. But it's certainly much easier to accomplish than just with CSS. So in order to make life easy for ourselves, we're actually not going to do distinct transforms animations. We're going to do some nesting to basically split the transform animations into different elements.
We don't necessarily need a new elements for this, by the way. We could use pseudo elements, but yeah, that's essentially what we're going to do.
A pseudo element, it's still going to be splitting off the actual element or the actual animation based on an element. I'm going to go ahead and use a real element here.
Fine.
A pseudo element animation, I've just not had good luck with. Performance wise, it's just it can suffer. At least it used to. I'm sure it's gotten a little better, but I've been burned enough that I don't trust it. All right,
yeah. Do we have a reference animation on here for animation number 3? I feel like I'm still seeing number 2.
Carl can speak up if otherwise, but I haven't seen an actual animation. We're just going to have like a GIF of it. So we're just going to
so we'll just go on the
the embed there. Okay. So I'm adjusting that to be box wrapper, and then the box is inside. Let's see.
So it fades in, it collides. And it here, I'm like triple checking the instructions over here. Submit results before noon on April 6th. I assume they mean noon in some other time zone, because we will not get this in. Probably noon in Hawaii, because right now it is already 5:22.
Yeah. I think he's letting us slip under the radar here.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, it is. You know what? We're going to do this in Hawaii time. It is 11:22 a.m. in Hawaii. So that's what we're doing. Okay.
Perfect.
Getting off on a technicality.
Okay, so I'm trying to adjust box wrapper here. Let's do that, and then we'll do box with 100%, height 100%.
Man, we're starting with the easy thing first, huh?
I mean, I'm just starting with adding the wrapper to give us that ability, which is not going.
Yeah, why are they off? That's a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Well, you're doing with 100% height, 100% for the boxes, right? That's
right. Well, they're inside of the box wrapper though, which is that. So I mean, even if we replace that, it's just like they're not. They just need top left, probably.
Nope.
No. Weird. What are they?
Yeah.
What are they being positioned off of?
Yeah. Oh, you know what? These transforms need to be on the box wrapper itself. So we need a box wrapper red and a box wrapper blue. So, I could go ahead and do that. So box wrapper red. Well, yeah, don't touch that. So we're gonna go ahead and move this down here.
Yes.
If my thinking is correct, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, box wrapper red. Then we have a box wrapper. Oh, geez. Oh, what did I paste? Okay.
Yeah. Box wrapper blue. There we go. And we're already targeting those animations correct. Yeah, okay. That gets us where we need to be.
So let's see how well this works. I'll go ahead and add the overshoot if you want to do the independent transform.
Are you talking about for the spin?
Yeah. Or not the spin. The you know how it overshoots the lines a little bit?
No, I don't.
It's in the instructions.
Overshoots. I think in the instructions, so it says during the last second of vertical movement, the spin has a slight overshoot.
Okay, right. I gotcha. All right, so let's do that.
Yeah, so I think that's definitely the easier part to do. So let's say let's start at the end down here. And we'll do dot box. We'll do animation. Should we do? Are we going to do two separate animations? One for the spin and one for the one for the bounce.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking is that the box wrapper. Since we already have it in the animation in the box, we might as well animate the box wrapper. What do you think? Or are you going to do the box itself?
Well, so the box wrapper is going to be the position, and then the box itself is where we'll do the bounce and the spin.
All right, fair enough. So does that mean I have to move the animations from?
No, the animations are good where they are. They're already applied to the box wrapper because those get the red and blue property, or get the red and blue class already. You can be more explicit about it if you want.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I gotcha. Cool. So yeah, and both of the boxes are going to have the same animation, both when it comes to, well, actually,
they spin the same direction.
They will, yeah. All right, so now we have to figure out when that spin happens. So we have our duration, our total duration via a CSS variable. We have that as, what's the number? We have total duration of 4 seconds. So we're assuming it happens at 3 seconds, which would correlate to 75%. And now you see the downsides of using percentages as keyframe keyframe values instead of
so we could do that as 100%, and then so 75% is transform. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, something like that. Okay, yeah, I was going to go here. It's like for CSS, you can get close enough by using something that looks like this, and then you have two lines that just look random. But I'm going to estimate this with my eyes. All right, so we have animation timing function cubic Bezier. So the first one is going to be the X value, which seems to be at like 0.1 or something. Then the Y value seems to be at like 2, something crazy like that. And then we have X at like 0.5, and then checking again, Y at 1 itself. So let's see if that accomplishes what we want to accomplish. So we have it there touching, and then we have the rotation and a little bit of an overshoot, which that's what we want, right?
Pretty cless, yeah.
Pretty close. Let's let Carl be the judge. Well, was that about it? Or I think he's just waiting for us to do the bounce thing.
Let's see. I'm playing it again just to see, and I think the direction.
That looks about right.
The direction of the rotation might be off. Let's see. No, it does need to be rotate 1 turn. positive 1 turn. Yeah, I think it's a little too much of an overshoot.
Hey, Carl said good job, so
All right.
I think we did good.
Yeah. I mean, here's like a curve that I would try. Animation timing function.
So you don't want to use that one?
Well, just based on the visual of it, like that feels a little closer to me than what is being shown on the other. 5, just cleaning up the values here.
Heads up, I just changed the preprocessor.
Okay.
And nothing happened. Why? Because SCSS is completely backwards compatible with CSS.
Yeah.
So, just a good thing.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got our spin. Now for the good stuff.
For the good stuff. And yeah. So here's the thing. CSS does not have a bounce thing.
Yet.
I mean, yeah, there were some proposals back in the day about CSS Spring and just having a native Spring function. But obviously that doesn't really exist yet. So what we have to do, and this is why we're bringing in Sass, is we have to do a little bit of math. And I mean, this is why, of course, GreenSock gives it to you for free, because GreenSock with JavaScript, you could do pretty much anything.
Well, and that math is already done, basically. So we're just having to, make that math with Sass or with CSS, rather than, importing a library that already has the math in there.
Right. So what I did today was I looked at the math for calculating how a bounce happens. How are we cheating, Rocket Rada? We are not cheating. And we're not using JavaScript. In fact, this is like anti-cheating. This is doing things the hard way. And basically, I made a Sass mixin for creating bouncy keyframes. Now, you could do this in a naive approach. And so I guess the best way to describe it is like if we have keyframes where every even keyframe by 10, like 20%, 40%, 60%, 80% were values that were decreasing by half each time, or by some set amount each time. And then every one of the in-between keyframes, like 10%, 30%, 50%, 70%, 90%, they all did transform none, then you could simulate a bouncing animation just by using keyframes, right?
Yes. Yeah, and that approach actually works pretty well. Let's see. Yeah, I adjusted. We were talking this through earlier as to what approach we'd use, and here's a version of that with CSS variables that actually works pretty well, and it's relatively readable. You've got like how much you want it to bounce, and then what the ending position is, and then basically a few just kind of reusable variables that are referenced in the keyframes, and then
right.
it just runs that way, and we can change the animation for the blue one to start at off screen and then end at 50%.
Right.
So yeah, it is easy to fake, but what David has done,
we're not faking,
and this is real math that will be translated to keyframes. So one I was playing around with David's earlier, and so messing with the decay a little bit and the bounces.
Did you find
doing a
something
decay 2 out of 4 and then like a bounce of 6 felt a lot more natural to me.
All right, yeah, and that's why I gave you all those parameters. I don't know if you have the latest version which is in the chat right now.
Yeah, what you sent me, I've got.
Yeah. So, yeah, sorry, I'm playing around with some of the values here. But yeah, essentially what's happening is the same thing I described. And I even referenced the original naive approach at the bottom called Alt's Bounce. But the way I did this, because you have to think ahead. I can't just do something that spits out all the keyframes because we want to incorporate this animation within the overall animation of the boxes moving, touching, going off, and just translating. So I made a mixin that lets you inject these bounces directly into keyframes, and then you could specify which keyframes you want it to be put on.
So there's a lot happening. If we look at the view compiled, you can see the way the keyframes come out. Let me get to the non-prefixed version. Let's see, where is that? Oh, there's a lot of prefixing happening.
Any way to turn that off?
If we go in here, use neither, close. There we go. So yeah, you can see more what's happening under the hood here. And again, this is essentially the same math that's happening with the GSAP bounce easing. It's just output in a way that you can see all of those actual keyframes that the browser is going to be animating to. So it looks intensive, but the whole point of the mix-in is you're not having to do this math manually, just like you don't have to with the GSAP bounce. And then the output of it is is just meant for the browser to mess with.
Right. So what do you say we figure this out and add it in?
Sure.
All right, I'll go ahead and just copy pasta a few things. I need to add a couple CSS variables. Those are the cubic Beziers. Easing functions are very, very important, and both of these are actually provided. I found it in Chrome itself. So inside Chrome, there is a CSS easings editor where you could drag the handles just like you saw on that website that Shaw was showing, and you could actually choose between a bunch of presets. And two of those presets are sign in and sign out. And I don't mean sign in and sign out like login and log outs, because we're not talking logarithms here. We're talking sign. And those sign functions are going to very closely approximate this bouncing effect that we want. So let me go ahead and start copying.
Yeah. What's the way you get to that viewer of the timing function?
So if you just look at one of the properties, like one of the cubic Bezier properties, and there's going to be a little graph that you click, and it's a little pop-up thing. And so once you see that, that's going to be it's going to be what you want.
Let's see. Let's just do 0.50, 0.51, and then there's the little link next to it, and so it's got some other example ones that you can go through. Right, so there's the sign out, and then out back, out linear in. Yeah, there's in sign as well. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And so that's the value that you got, and you spit that out into the CSS variable here. So that's cool.
Yep.
I saw the sign, David.
All right, we're done with puns. Just kidding.
As if.
Never done with puns. All right, so I added the functions necessary for the mixin to work. You don't have to worry about the functions. Those are just necessary because Sass, at least the old version of Sass, does not have built-in absolute value or square root functions. So you sort of have to estimate it, and this is using the Babylonian method, which, I'm assuming Babylonian people did not have MacBook Pros like back in the day, so... They had a big tower, though.
No, it was the colorful MacBooks that they had back in the day.
Yeah. So what we do is we inject these directly into the mixin on whatever percentages we want. So let's do it for red.
It'll be down here in box, right? Because we'll want to do it on the actual box.
Well, all right, so here's the problem. Both of them are bouncing. They have two different bounces on it. So if we're going to do that, then we have to do like a spin red and spin blue.
Or just a separate animation.
Or a separate animation. However, both of them are doing transforms, so that might be a problem. Honestly, we could do it in... Actually, no, we can't do it in red one and blue one. No, we can. In fact, we should, because it's we do want to replace that initial 0 to 25% transform. We want to replace that because it's going to be bouncing. It's not going to be moving. So I could show you. Let's do it with red. Let's just do, as a thought experiment, we're going to include insert, what do I call it? Insert bounces. Insert bounces, yes.
Yeah, bounces, yeah.
Insert bounces. And so I could say, man, this is terribly named on my parts but min p and max p. So min p is 0 by default. So we're going to say max p is going to be 25% because that's what we wanted to go to. So we're just going to stick those right in there and let's see what happens. It goes really far away because we didn't set initial, but it bounces. Okay. Yeah, we might have to tweak a couple things here.
Yeah, so let me see. Let me just go back to your reference one. So we probably want to set the initial value.
A lot of things, yeah.
Oh, sorry. And then transform, translate X.
We could tweak this mixin to work for our use case, by the way.
Yeah, I think it'll work too.
And I mean that's what mixins are for. So we go transform, translate X. I hope you're not getting sick.
No.
And then so. All right, yeah. Let's do where we're tweaking the actual mixin, but we could leave that max p 25%. So basically, we wanted to go from we're having it translate. Well, what are the values that we're translating? We're translating from 150 pixels. No, we're translating from 0 to 150 pixels, right? Okay. So we're going to say that. Initial is 150 pixels because that's what we want. And trust me, I'll describe this in a minute. So let's try this again. And then, are you editing something?
No.
Invalid CSS after nan expected keyframe selector was, what did I do wrong?
So yeah, it was probably was me. So we want it to end at 150 pixels, at least for red.
Yeah. So,
but we want it to start at 0.
Yeah, here's where the magic is going to happen. Transform, we're going to say translate, and our X value is going to be 150, because it starts at 150 pixels already. And so that's why we have to do 150 pixels minus val, but that's not going to, no, that is going to work because we're in Sass land. And 150 pixels. So let's see what happens there. Because I'm doing a transform none over here. That's why.
Yeah.
So we just have to translate. What is it? 150 pixels? 150 pixels?
I believe so.
Okay, cool.
Oh, just kind of slides into place. Okay, there we go.
All right, cool. So that works. Actually, I'm pretty surprised that works, but that works. All right, so let's think about how to do it with the other one. With the other one, we could just do the same thing.
Well, so, I mean, you probably just want to pass down a value of like, the Y position.
Which is what we're doing. We're saying initial.
Well, sure, right, initial, and then Y. 150 pixels, and then we'll use that Y value down here.
Okay, cool.
And then Y, and then so let's see. So translate 150 pixels. So we want
So we want initial here to be like negative 150 pixels or something like that. Let's see if that works. It does work, except it overshoots it by quite a bit.
So where are you working?
I am working.
Oh, you're doing
blue 1. Okay. Yeah, my math is a tiny bit off, but it's working. So, because you see how blue is a little bit too far, so I think it's not negative 150 pixels. It's more like negative. I'm doing math. 130.
Well, so the problem is, so we want, instead of initial, let me see, we want like start X and end X. 50 pixels.
Okay.
So start X would be 0, and then let's see. So this would be end X, and then end X. Let's see, where is initial used anywhere else? Current is initial. Current will be start X.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. By the way, if you're looking at this mix, and for everyone watching on the stream, that val is generated. So by the number of bounces we have, which in this case is 6, it's going to, for example, if we have 100 pixels, we're getting those values in a list. It's called in Sass, so it's going to be like 175, whatever 75 divided by 1.5 is. And it just goes down like that. And so that's going to constitute each one of our, in this case, X values over here. So, well, what are you? All right, so invalid CSS after nan.
Yeah, so look down at lines 101 or 181-ish. Is that the proper way to pass down multiple, or does it need to be semicolons?
No, it's commas. Should be commas. So we have max p, start x, end x, and
0 pixels.
Yeah, that might be it. So invalid CSS after nan. Expected keyframe selector was %, so allows divided by total time. That's fine.
Right. So it's
fine.
This bit, I think, line 59.
Is that the only bit? Because, well, let's comment that and see if we have another problem.
Yeah, one of these things is calculating down to not a number for some reason. Right.
So I think the initial assumption might be wrong for. Well, all right. Well, what
it's not line 60. It's this math right here that's triggering a non.
Which one?
Line 59. Something in here is triggering a not a number calculation.
Okay. So expected keyframe selector was %.
Right. So this should be a % value, but for some reason it's coming through as not a number because something
so
here.
Which one of these variables was? Oh, wait a minute. So now that we have a start x and an end x, obviously we have the. All right. So current is start x.
Yeah.
So current should be since we have. Yeah. So that might not. Here we'll do it this way. So the current. Let's pretend we have the initial value again. So initial, that's going to, in this case, be end x minus start x. Because that's like, remember, we're going from something to 0. And then so this current is going to be the initial. And so we're just multiplying by the decay, which in this case.
There we
go.
And
I was rubber ducking and then it just fixed itself, I guess.
And time. What are we at? 35 minutes. Great.
Okay. I don't know what to say, but that works pretty well.
Yeah, and so this is, it's a weird thing. Like on the stream, we're normally not like this, in like technically things right there. But again, this is a lot of stuff that happens under the hood that if you're doing it yourself, whether you're doing that manually with JavaScript or manually in CSS Animations, these calculations have to happen somewhere. GSAP has them built in, but if you're not using GSAP, you've got to make them yourself.
I'm adding a lot of bounces.
Oh dear.
All right, so we don't need this transform. Okay, this is awesome. I guess I should explain what the heck all of this Sass is, right? Let's see what oh, wait a minute. Let's are our easings correct? I feel like there's a, because when they hit each other, I want it to have like a hard bounce, right? Are we getting that? I think we are.
Yeah, it seems that way. We're not doing sign in. We might need to declare that here.
Oh yeah.
Sign in.
We need to sign in. We are unauthenticated. So
yeah. So the problem there is the initial one shouldn't be that.
Right.
Be signed
which
in.
is why that needs to go on the actual element itself.
Well, but so that's going to affect the rest of the.
So then we unaffect it.
You can always do. Let's see, 0%.
Yeah, we could do a 0%.
In theory, that will do it. Kind of. 1%.
Yeah, it was tricky. Like when I was trying this out, it did not work if I did it per keyframe, the animation timing function per keyframe, which has always been somewhat of a mystery to me. But I did it instead on the actual elements, and then it seemed to work.
Yeah. Let's see. So what are we doing for the animation timing function on those? We've got bar easing.
Where did you add that 1%?
Up in the function. Sign in. Let's just adjust that here and see if that fixes it. Yeah. See, we want the normal movement up until the actual bounce. So I think just removing this, we get pretty close with the easing that we have.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say so.
Let's see. Let's tone down the bounces just a little bit. And then, are you even using the duration in there anymore?
I don't think so. What am I using the duration for?
Yeah, I think that was
actually that.
Yeah, I think that you were just using that before. I don't think that's even needed.
Yeah, no, I guess it's not needed. That's weird. I love deleting stuff, so that works.
Okay, so min-p. Yeah, so that it's still that sign out that's doing it. So we'd almost we wouldn't want, so line 61 where it's animation timing function, we wouldn't declare that until after min-p, or like after that first movement.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know the sassy way to do that, but.
Oh yeah. So you could do like a if statement here, and that will do the job. So what are we saying?
So if it's after, only insert that if it's after the initial like hit. I don't. So
okay. So I have an index here. So I'm guessing if I is greater than 1, right?
Probably. It might. Yeah.
We'll find out. Does that look any better?
Let's see. Moment of truth. No. Maybe greater than 2. I don't know.
Nope.
No.
In fact, that looks even worse. All right. What we could do is we could look at the compile. That's a little scary. I was going to say we could look at the compiled CSS and see what happens. Just because we do want to see when we're supposed to insert that animation timing function.
Compiled is not currently working for me. I know somebody at CodePen that'll work on that now.
Is it yourself?
Yeah. Okay, so you removed that timing function completely?
Oh yeah, I didn't remove anything.
Oh. Then what
or might have, I don't know.
Okay, I'm getting some oddities here then. I'm going to refresh really quick after I copy.
Okay. Yep, always a safe move.
Yeah, the animation timing function.
I think we just overloaded it.
Apparently.
Overloaded the compiler. It's a thing that happens.
Yeah. All right. Well, one thing, let's see. One thing we could do, so max, let's see. We could do min p 20%, max p 25%, and then have our 0 keyframe as normal. Let's just try that real quick.
Okay. I trust you. Well, it worked for one of them.
Oh yeah, that's just the...
Yeah. So
this would be 15%, 25%.
Honestly, this is probably one of those off by one errors, so we could probably just leave it as is because it is really, really, really close enough anyway.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I would just be nitpicking to do much more. But as far as like matching the animation exactly, so there's... Oh wait, hold on. Let me play the animation here.
Shaw had an epiphany.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it is. It is pretty much there. Let me adjust a few of the properties here. So like bounces is more like 3. Yeah. Yeah, it's just that initial movement that's a little bit off, but I think we'll live with that for now.
Yeah, or fix it. Did you reduce the bounces? How dare you?
I did. So like look back at the original animation. So maybe it's just a stronger decay. Let's bump that up.
The lower number of bounces does make the unfortunate side effect a little bit more clear, but we could fix that in post. That's fine.
And get a file size of the CSS output in a minute.
Oh no! Don't do that.
Yeah, let me see if I can get that really quick while we're on here. Anything else on it that you would do?
No, I would spend hours on that cubic Bezier, but we could definitely, once we release this, we're gonna have that fixed. So
yeah, it's actually not bad. Looking at the raw CSS, let's see if I can pull this up here. Let me go to my favorite site, bitesizematters.com. We'll get the output here, 4 kilobytes total, and that's unminified. If I have more white space, it's down to 3.4. So, I mean, overall, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's like a fraction of the size of GreenSock. Just kidding. GreenSock includes a lot of things that are also really good that CSS cannot do. To be fair.
And honestly, like if you look at the keyframes output of it, that's not bad at all. It's really only injecting maybe 10 keyframes for that bounce.
Yeah.
For these exact settings. So yeah, I'd say that's perfectly doable. And yeah, again, so there's a lot of benefits with GreenSock. If you're including it for like just one animation, that's where you have to like really justify. Versus trying to implement something with CSS, and it all comes down to cross-browser support, what you're animating, and what your team is most comfortable with, because it's not all about you and what you can do, but as long as you're delivering a good experience to the end user and using appropriate tools for the job that your team can maintain in the long run, then you're in a good spot.
Yeah. And yeah, if I were working on a team on a complex animation, I would probably use something like GreenSock or any of the other ones. There's Anime.js, there's Framer Motion, which is derived from Pop Motion. I discovered that Framer Motion and GreenSock are like the only two major animation libraries that use seconds instead of milliseconds for their duration, which is fine. It's the natural way that most people think. Most people think in seconds rather than milliseconds. However, the default for JavaScript is milliseconds, and I personally don't trust JavaScript for numbers between 0 and 1. So, yeah.
Yeah. Rounding errors is a whole nother thing that you can run into with CSS as well.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of fun issues crop up that way. But yeah, anything else to cover here? I think we pretty much got it. Yeah,
we could keyflect on this mixin.
Sure. Yeah, we can do a Keyflections real quick to break it down, since this one was a little more complex. So yeah, Keyflections. This is a quick review of the techniques used in this animation. If you have any questions, ask us in the chat or leave a comment below. We'll be happy to answer.
By the way, if you've enjoyed watching us so far, you could support us, but I can't talk today. You could support us by pledging at patreon.com/keyframers and subscribing to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/keyframers. Links are available below.
Check them out. All right, so today we have been continuing the No Frills Web Animation Challenge by Carl Schooff at snorkel.tv. And he kind of upped the ante on this one. We did part 1 and 2 basically last week, challenge 1 and 2. So go and check that one out. And so challenge 3 builds on that, adding in this bounce and then a spin with a little bit of an overshoot on the way out. So we've managed to do this with CSS, and so we started with the same basic template as before, but we did add a wrapper element around the boxes, primarily for the spin animation at the end. I'll cover that real quick, and then I'll let David talk a bit about the bounces. So the box wrapper is actually what's animating the movement, and then on the box itself is where we're animating the spin, and we've just set up fairly straightforward keyframes. After 75%, it's going to rotate 1 turn, and then we have a more I guess elasticy cubic Bezier that overshoots a little bit. See this blue handle up here, kind of pulling that up. And so that means the animation is going to go beyond the last value and then come back. And so that's what gives us the nice kind of slide back into place from the spin. So yeah, and then the bounce animation, not really much to cover there. So, we'll...
Yeah, so with the bounces, this looks like a lot, but in reality, you could easily fake this by just creating a keyframe for each bounce where half of the keyframes are at those apex values, so like 175%, 50%, 25, just going all the way down to 0 in that nice, smooth, decaying path. But I decided to use a little bit of real math over here. And so what this mixin is essentially doing is, first, it's figuring out what are the values from some initial value to the end value, and it's doing it by multiplying it by some decay. In this case, 1.5 divided by 4, so because it's not 3 over 4, whatever, it's like 3 over 8. Anyway, so that's going to make it go, just cut the value by a fraction of the value every single time and append those to a list. And so those are going to constitute every single one of the bounces. So what we're doing is we're iterating through each of those values, and we are outputting keyframes. We're outputting 1 keyframe for the top, so that top of that bounce, and 1 keyframe for the bottom of that bounce. And so that's why these easings are important. We have a sign out and a sign in easing in order to get that natural bouncing effect. And we do a little bit of math here to determine, this is just saying go in between each of the bounces in order to have that 0. And this is saying based on the keyframes we provide, the min p and the max p, we want it to be at the specific keyframe percentage that we want it to be. So a little bit of math over here, but yeah, and actually this is the craziest part, this t, which is the square root of 2 times the absolute value divided by 32, which actually should be g, which is the gravitational constant. I'm not going to go further on that, but just realize that this outputs keyframes that you could stick in any keyframe animation. And yeah, the math works out.
Yeah, and so we're actually calling that mix-in directly in the keyframes for the red and blue animation. So we've got this insert bounces call here with the start x and the end x, and then the max p is setting what the range of the animation is, because we do want a normal animation or normal animation keyframes after all of that. So this kind of limits the bounce to that one segment of the animation, which is really nice. Huge props to David for setting all this up, doing all the research, and getting that math in place. And as we talked about earlier in the episode, this seems like complex and like, why would you do this? But the bottom line is that complexity exists somewhere. If you're using GSAP, that complexity is baked into the library, and that's great. Makes it easy to use because you can just call that function, same as you can call this mixin. But if you're implementing this from scratch, whether that's in CSS or JavaScript, you've got to do that math, or you've got to fake it somehow. So that's going to lead to some weird numbers and some weird calculations. But ultimately, this is actually a pretty nice little setup here. And we talked about the final output of it. Here's basically what we're looking at. 3.5 kilobytes unminified overall for the whole animation that we're talking about. So here's kind of some samples of that keyframe output that we're talking about. So you can see what that mix-in is actually producing.
And we can make that even smaller. I just didn't do the optimizations.
Yeah. There's always room for improvement there. But overall, I think this is very nice, and actually wasn't too wild once you get the math done.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and one of the biggest benefits of doing it in CSS2 is that you have the advantage of using the browser's built-in animation dev tools in order to inspect the animation and even scrub and everything like that. GreenSock has that as well, but you have to add it manually to your JavaScript.
Yeah, the little GSAP dev tools bit is very nice to play around with, and you get some of that in the browser dev tools as well for CSS animations. So definitely check those out. Yeah, anything else from you, David?
No, but the real solution to this animation is telling your clients that bounce animations are terrible and they should never include them anywhere. So,
good luck with that. At any rate, you have been watching Keyframers. If you've enjoyed this episode and would like to see more, you can support us by pledging at patreon.com/keyframers or buying our developer shirts, stickers, and more at keyframe.rs/merch. And all of our videos are available at youtube.com/keyframers. You can subscribe to our channel there for more great content.
Also, we accept submissions for future episodes. I think next week or this week marks like the anniversary, right?
Yeah. So this is actually our 2-year anniversary. The end of season 2. We'll kick off season 3 next week, and yeah, that'll be fun. But
we'll take a break for 6 days.
Yes. But yeah, we've got more great content to come for all of you. So definitely stay tuned and definitely subscribe at youtube.com. But happy anniversary, David.
Yeah, you too.
Been great making all this content with you. I enjoy it.
And more to come.
Yes. And thanks to Carl Schooff for this challenge. This has been fun, and it's really great to see everybody else's solutions to it. Do definitely check that out at snorkel.tv. And by the time this episode is up, all the other solutions should be out there as well. So, yeah, check that out. Well, that is all we have for you today. Until next time, adios, amigos.
Adios.